but presumably that means that we are going to be up live. Okay, it just made a noise, so I think that means we're good. My picture is frozen and or delayed. Uh-oh.
Not to me.
It's not frozen.
No, you're good. You're
It's
good.
not.
Okay.
You're good.
It just stops
Yeah,
in
okay.
places.
Yeah, you know, sometimes our own individual bandwidth might do that. And I hopefully I do have my phone here as a backup. But hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's on Zoom. Welcome to those people on Facebook. Welcome for those people who are on YouTube. If you are on YouTube or on Facebook, you might want to click the Zoom link, which you can find over on the jewishlive.org page. If you'd like to participate, or you're welcome to just look. If you're new to Musar, Musar is a practice of personal development and personal growth. It's a Jewish practice, and we're going to be kind of learning by doing. So the first thing I always like to do for starting any kind of a Musar meeting is with a little meditation. If you're new to meditation, there's this myth that it can feel like, oh, well, if I'm meditating, it must mean I'm going to bliss out and everything's going to feel wonderful. And that's not always the case. Sometimes the mind races, it can be uncomfortable. In this circumstance, all you need to do is just kind of listen to what I say and follow directions. And worst comes to worst, it's all going to be over in a couple of minutes. So I invite you to relax and close your eyes. Taking a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth. And hold. Exhale through the nose and hold. So you go at your own speed of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car pass on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth, hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema, and on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply. Without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. One of the important things when we're together practicing Musar, we want to just listen with an open heart. We don't want to offer advice to anyone. We're just here together on a journey. And I'd like to begin maybe just in, again, if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, you might want to jump into the meeting. But for those of you who are in Zoom, first of all, if you could mute yourself, unless you're talking. Oh wait, I found the mute all button. Okay, I'm going to mute everybody. So when it is time to talk, just unmute yourself. Secondly, I'd like you to just use the chat box and just in a word or two, kind of where are you at right now? You know, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing? You know, for me, people ask me how I am. It really depends on when you ask. Right now, I'm feeling kind of calm and settled because of that. Asked me last night at about 5. I was in total meltdown mode and begging to get out of any kind of duties in the kitchen because I was just undone. So in the chat, how are you? How are you now?
I find that the four walls, so to speak, you get a little bit old at times. At my congregation here in Carmel Valley, we had our Musar women's group yesterday afternoon, and Rena was part of that, and I thought that was very helpful. I think this whole concept of getting out and through Zoom and having social contact that way is super important because I really feel very isolated. That's my main thing right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we're getting in the chat. You know, people feeling more anxious than they expected to be. A lot of overwhelm. Relieved to survive Costco senior hours. Yeah, I don't go to senior hours, but I've had my trips to the grocery store, and that is quite a scene. You know, quite a scene. Insomnia has gotten out of control. Yeah, I hear that. I have had quite a bit of that myself. The worst night, I have to say, it's because my teenage daughter made boba for me at about 4 in the afternoon, which I really loved. I was taking a Hebrew exam, which was hard, but man, at 12:45, I'm thinking, why in the world am I still awake? You know, so that didn't help the cause. Yeah, a good comment from Sherry. It's possible to get over busy with Zoom activities. I feel a little bit like, you know, as someone who, you know, wants to be of service, I feel like I'm in a land grab. It's like, who can get their thing out on Zoom first? You know, who is going to be the one to stake their ground and really get the big Zoom following, which is kind of crazy. But I do have to say that those thoughts pop into my head a little bit. All right, I'm gonna now share my slides. Okay, can everybody see the slides? Can you give me a thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I wanted to start just with an idea for those of you who are in my email list. You might have seen this earlier today. I really have a pretty strong objection to the term social distancing. One of the key concepts in Judaism is that words really have power. The world was created through words, and we assist in the ongoing creation of the world with the words that we choose. And for me, the idea of social distancing at a time like now feels like spiritual suicide. You know, we need to come together socially. It's the physical distancing. So I'd love to kind of hear some reactions to this. How do you relate to this or not relate to this? And you can just unmute yourself and share, and please keep your comments brief.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, this is Sherry. I also agree. And I saw a post on something recently that I'm going to try and find to share with you guys that had a number of phrases and how to reframe them. And this was one of them. And instead of, you know, social distancing, it's physical distancing. But there were other ones like that. And I thought, I agree with you. It's so important to think about the language that we're using.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
is Lori.
I think as we physically distance, you know, that of course is very needed now. But I agree with Greg that if we're not socially coming together, it is like a slow suicide in a way. Very distressing to me to be separated from people right now.
Yeah.
I heard someone say that
I-
Judaism is about relationships.
I am
Yes.
very grateful. How do we get on?
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
I am so grateful for the possibility to do Zoom meetings and phone conference things, and to everyone who's putting them together. We are so blessed. And Beth Am is doing an incredible job, and there is something about looking forward to those things every day. And I'm bless you all. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I have found that this opportunity, it's like there was suddenly a big problem, and then the solution was existing before, because we had this technology that a lot of people were not already using, and all of a sudden they discover it. And it's creating another type of connection that is so much more authentic than what social media was allowing. So I am very, very grateful.
Thank you, Hadassah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're in a loneliness epidemic already. You know, this is not like a new thing. This has been an issue that's been out there before. And as Hadassah said, this is a technology which has been here. This has been an option, but we've all been kind of in our habits. We've just been doing whatever we're doing, or maybe we didn't know, or who wants to learn a new technology? You know, that's like a bother. You kind of like, oh, in theory, that sounds fine. But suddenly, with changing circumstances, here we are.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for this, and I've been trying to imagine what it would be like if we did not have this technology, did not have the internet, did not have the phone. And for people who lived through pandemics before, who had to isolate and were really isolated. Now that's scary.
I'm taking this as a learning experience. I had to learn how to do Zoom because Bari and I teach Sunday school, and we are on this Sunday going to have our first Zoom classroom meeting with our 5th and 6th graders, who we haven't seen since March 8th. And so I had to learn how to do Zoom. Greg, I'm probably going to need a tutorial from you to figure out how to do this thing with slides and whatnot. But I figured slow and easy, we'll get it going however it is. But you know, I have a couple of friends who have been very busy doing household projects, things like cleaning out their closet, which is one thing I keep threatening to do, but find 17 other things to procrastinate to do from doing that. But, you know, that's just what we are. And the whole thing is attitude. If you look at this as a learning experience, both on a actual physical learning and a mental learning, I think it's really going to be far more helpful than saying, oh, woe is me, I'm all alone, et cetera, et cetera. Pick up the phone or get your own Zoom thing and face to face with some other people. And really, it's a big help. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah, so for you, it's been a call to action, and you've been in a place where you can sort of look on a grateful side. And I think different people are at different places. There was a great article in the New York Times about a lot of people are in mourning or in grief just for things that they've lost, or even if they haven't lost people. But like, you know, my daughter has lost a semester of college. I mean, that's really a bummer. I mean, who wants to live with their parents when you could be away at college? I mean, we get along well, we're doing okay, but it's a loss. You don't get that semester back. My younger daughter's missed some real opportunities, which are just part of kind of the growing up process, you know, sorry, we're distancing now during that time. I'm going to transition a little bit.
I was just going to say, I have a friend who I'm decidedly speaking with every single day. And sometimes we speak twice a day. And we're friends since junior high school. So since 12, 13 years old. And she has been having a particular difficulty with feeling grief, and especially around her son. And she gets rather panicked. He's an adult child, and rather panicked that he might die. And so she's gone into, she's cried, and she's, and so I try to support her over the phone. And I think we're all feeling to some degree a sense of grief, whether it's as severe as what my friend is experiencing or not. I think it's on a sliding scale. So, that way.
And that's a really good segue to kind of the next phase of where of what we're going to cover today, because Musar is a practice of really getting to know really coming in touch with different. They're called midot or soul traits, different character traits, different parts of who we are, and breathing into them and living into them. And we'll focus on one trait at a time. So in this class, this group will be meeting weekly, and each week will change. Right now, we're going to start working on humility. And the way that daily practice works is there's a morning mantra phrase. You pick one small thing or one way to act a little bit differently, and then you write. So writing down kind of what's been, how this soul trait has come up for you. So keep that in the back of your mind as we begin to delve into this.
Greg, I have a quick question. I'm
yeah.
sorry, I have a quick question. Are you going to be sending us like PDFs of your slides that you're using today?
I had not thought about that, but let me think about it. I'll certainly be circulating a recording, but let me think about that.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. So for those of you who've been to some of my Musar experiences before, I try to make these as accessible as possible. And one way I've done that is I've created 4 assumptions to kind of help guide the Musar practice. And I'm not going to go through all of these today, but each time we'll go through one of them in depth. And the first one is that there's a divine spark in everyone, which is occluded by our baggage. Now, this idea comes from the story of creation and the story of Genesis, where we're created in the divine image, or in another part of the passage, it says that the divine breathed life into the first human. And so we all kind of carry that. If you're not sure about God or the divinity, we carry that spark of goodness that's always with us and never goes away. But at the same time, we have our hurts, our baggage, those things that have happened in life, which sort of hold us back and sort of get in the way of us connecting with our better self. So before we move on, how does this idea of the divine spark or baggage kind of maybe come into play now at a time when many of us are in isolation, or we're dealing with this pandemic? Is this at all useful, or is it kind of just all sort of a little too ethereal? Maybe someone we haven't heard from yet.
This is Christo. I remember an analogy of one candle lighting another one. The flame on the candle lighting of the candle never goes down, it stays the same. And even in a very dark room, a single candle in the middle can outshine most of the darkness within it. And so I often think of that analogy whenever I'm connecting with people interested in Musar like you here and others. I think of each one of us as kind of like one candle's lighting another one without diminishing the source of the flame.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Christo.
So if we all have these sparks together, that's a lot of flame, and helping others connect with their divinity or the divine spark. That's a lot of light. Jim, did I cut you off?
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Christo. I have recurring experiences for decades that when I'm gathered with others who are sharing the same intention, the spark the flame grows much larger. And whether we're gathering together to meditate, gathering together in prayer, gathering together in service, that energy, that life grows bigger. And I have thought of it, thanks to studying Musar, that that's the God energy that we all have and possess, and we fire off of each other. Thank you.
That's beautiful. You know, when I was on one of these calls last week, someone said, why is Zoom so much more tiring than in-person meetings? Like people who are just, you know, doing their jobs, doing it by Zoom. And I think the answer that came out is very much in line with what Jim just said, is that we do get energy from just being in the room with other people. And while I think we can get here, and for sure that we do, I don't think that it's the same as being in the same room with somebody else. Very interesting. Other thoughts?
So, hi, this is Elizabeth. I'm here in Bishop, and the beauty that I found is the beauty of community, including via Zoom or whatever other virtual ways we have to stay connected. And our local little Musar group has been such a blessing. We're studying together now for a few months, and every time we go to a different midah, and especially now, we marvel at how stronger we feel thanks to that. So thank you, Greg.
You're welcome, Elizabeth. And yeah, one of the things that a Musar practice does is it helps us kind of move those bags out of the way. So as we kind of figure out what's our own internal individual block, just doing a tiny bit of work, you know, again, like Christo said, you know, one candle can shed a lot of light. So if you move that bag just a tiny smidgen over, it can let in a lot of light. It can let in a lot of light. Any other, if there are no other comments, I will have us move on. So I see something in the chat here. So each humility is the soul trait that we're working on today. It's really important to think about these not in this sort of Western form of humility, which is about being meek and self-effacing. What we're talking about in Judaism, humility is about finding your right place in the universe. It's finding a sense of balance between being really arrogant and being on the one side and being really sort of on the other. And if we think about things on a spectrum, there are you know, there are disadvantages to being on either side. So what is sort of having too little humility?
Greg, I was having trouble with the audio. I didn't understand what you said.
I was saying I should talk a little bit about these extremes. Like, how might that show up if we had too little humility? What are sort of the dangers or traps that we could fall into?
Well, I think also not being able to stand up for ourselves, or feeling that we're somehow less than, and taking that role, you know, on, and believing that that's how we really are, when it really is the spectrum. Again, I bring up spectrum, but from the arrogant side to this, as you point out, Greg, self-debasing side. So it's a sense of, I think, putting ourselves down, or seeing that we're not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, feeling not enough. Andrea, were you starting to say something?
Yes, I was going to say, when someone has too little humility, which I've definitely been guilty of, it's very hard to actually self-assess, to see the rest of your weaknesses, because there's a certain sense of rightness and superiority that easily develops.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You know, I was trying to find the quote so I could get the reference, but I think it's in Proverbs. It says that a fool in their own mind is as wise as 7 sages. So, you know, when we get really arrogant, you know, we can't see like what's going on with us. We think that we're, and having very much been there, man, you know, when I was in the corporate world, my performance reviews were always the same. It's like, Greg, you get more done than anyone I've ever worked with. And you were just so arrogant that half the people can't stand to work with you. And you leave dead bodies behind you. So, and I'd be like, yeah. And is there a problem with this? And it really cost me. It really, when things got tough, people did not have my back, and it really unnecessarily damaged some relationships.
Greg, can I say something?
Please.
I don't know how to chime in. You just unmute and say something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking just this morning how humbling the experience that we are going through is. The whole experience is very humbling. That you know, really, it's like being pushed up against the wall and seeing your life and seeing what I can do and what I can't do. And it's very humbling, and it's, yeah, that's what I thought. Sorry, that's it.
Thank you. That's a great point, and it's a great segue to this phrase, which is up here above the spectrum from Alan Moranis: no more than my space, not less than my place, which is a great way to think about humility. What does that mean? What does that bring up for you, first of all? And then secondly, how might this relate to what we're going through right now?
Well, one of the things that I kept seeing as everyone was speaking, I had to do with the fact that I kept picturing all the kids on the beach in South Florida. And it really made my hair stand on end, because I have kids that live there and they're sheltering in place. And but there was no humility. They were arrogant. So what if I get COVID-19? It was the attitude of one young man that I just wanted to wring his throat. I couldn't believe that he would put himself in such harm's way, or all of those young people, because they feel that they're invincible. And yet now we're hearing about all the people from New Orleans, all the people from the beaches in South Florida and Clearwater, et cetera, that are now being tested, and lo and behold, they got it. And so they really had too little humility to think that something might in fact happen to them. For the rest of us, I don't think we're self-debasing when we choose to shelter in place, or whatever terminology you wish to use for it, because in my mind's eye, what I'm seeing is people are caring for others, making sure that you don't know if you're a carrier. So I don't want to go to see my best friend who's 80 years old and compromised in health, but I'll talk to her every day on the phone. Those kinds of things. So that's just what kept going through my mind, and I just needed to say my piece. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, and it is certainly easy to look at the behavior of others, and so that's a glaring example of people saying, hey, this isn't my problem, or I'm going to be okay, or young people. I mean, my dad was part of a breakfast group, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm staying home, except for my breakfast group where I get together with other people who are 80, and we do that every morning. And and I'm sympathetic because that was important to him, and he's been doing this for 20 years with these people, and they get together and they talk, and then eventually they closed the restaurant and they couldn't do that anymore. But it is you know, there's an element of denial that can come in, you know, just not facing the reality. And part of humility is sort of being able to be in the moment and to really accept the world for the way it is.
I found in the midst of all of this arrogance that I'm seeing, and it is infuriating, I have a tendency to devalue myself, to undervalue myself, and I can't go out. I don't even dare go out and grocery shop, nothing. I'm not even going out for walks anymore. But what I found is there are people that value me enough to see that I've been getting groceries and check in and say, is there anything you need? And I'm feeling, now that's humbling. And I feel such gratitude for it. That's just amazing, amazing kindness of some people too. So we're seeing both sides. We're seeing this arrogance and we're seeing this deep, wonderful caring. That's what it showed me.
And Carol, if you don't mind my asking, if this is too personal, please, you don't need to answer, but you almost sound a little bit surprised that people cared enough to kind of do that for you.
I am. There were a couple of people I thought would probably, you know, if I reached out and asked, they'd be there if necessary. As of last week, I think I mentioned I had 6 or 7 people offer. I've now had 10 different offers from people to get groceries. 10. I mean, that's astonishing. And 3 of them were complete strangers, just people on the Nextdoor website in my neighborhood. And, you know, a couple of them I don't really know all that. I mean, other people that I don't, one of them I know her from the farm, but I don't know her well. I know her enough to say hello, how you doing, what's new, you know, but that's about it. So yes, it is a little bit astonishing to me. And I'm very grateful because I am in rather dire circumstances. I live alone. I have no family here. My nearest family is my brother over in Santa Cruz. And he's really my only family, you know, that I'm really, really close with. And so I am just kind of out here, you know, and I live alone, so it can get a little lonely, but hey, got Zoom, got social media, doing okay. And yesterday, a friend called just to check up on me, so that's nice.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. That brings to mind the question, I wonder, has anyone ever felt awkward about offering help? Has anyone felt like, what is that like? What is that experience like where maybe in other circumstances, you've sort of seen something, it's like, oh, should I offer? Should I not offer? I mean, I know I've had that experience. I suspect I'm not the only one. Can anyone sort of comment maybe outside of this sort of emergency time, or maybe offering help didn't, you know, just for whatever reason, it just felt a little weird and I don't know, I just, that'll be okay. And anybody?
Yeah, I have felt awkward about offering help. And now that I'm the person needing help, I realize that both the helping and the allowing the help is a mitzvah. So.
Who else? Who else can describe that feeling? Yael, are you trying to talk?
Hi, yeah. Hi, it's so nice to see everyone. I'm Yael. You know, what I was thinking about was, so I'm in my early 50s and I teach yoga and mindfulness and I've been the primary breadwinner in my family. My husband lost his job when he went to take care of his mom who died, and he's been looking. And what I'm finding is, I think I also, I mean, I think on the outside, I carry myself with a lot of confidence. But on the inside, you know, in a time like this where I'm having to, there's a really steep learning curve in terms of all of the sudden, you know, for years, people were saying, you should really offer some of your classes online. You should really put yourself out there in a different way. And that always felt terribly uncomfortable to me. And I'm sort of working really hard right now to sort of not buy into the sense of urgency that I'm feeling all around me to make everything normal, to return to normalcy. It's just that everything's online, you know, but there's this busyness and this rather, I think what perhaps the virus is asking us to do is just to slow down. Someone wrote ecological renewal, reset. And I do believe that there can be sort of a hidden blessing in it. But at the same time, really needing to push through some of my own, I guess, beliefs around how we are in the broader world. And I'm really like, I'm working right at that wall. You know, I keep feeling myself pushing against that.
Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, there's a couple of really beautiful things in there. I mean, one is this idea of putting yourself out there is about occupying more space, right? It's I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna occupy more space. But at the same time, I'm hearing it's like there's sort of this push to kind of keep going and let's recreate our busy, overscheduled, crazy world on Zoom, and we don't need to change anything. And you're very much holding your ground and saying, hey, whoa, wait a minute here. You know, for myself and my leadership, I'm going to by saying, hey, look, we can do things differently. You know, we don't need to recreate the machine world that we've had before, that we can really do things differently. And I got so worked up on this idea that I actually did a Facebook Live in my bathrobe last night at about 10:30 or 11, because all this push to like get everybody to go back to work feels to me like people just freaking out. Like, what if the world actually did change and suddenly people stopped working all the time and started taking care of each other? I think like certain people just can't handle that idea. It's a real threat to like the whole way we've been living for the last 100 years. So it's very interesting. I wanted other teaching and work. Yeah. Does someone else have something to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about the previous slide, and I have the feeling that right now, this tiny invisible thing that has happened everywhere is pushing everyone to show up in a different way. I mean, now we see that those who are the essential workers are those who were deemed invisible before. We see them for what they do for us because they are the sustainers, and we have to reinvent ourselves and this for me is very linked to humility. I mean, we're all created for a reason, and if we are here, it's for a reason. And are we in our place? And it seems that I like the idea that this has slowed us down so that we go inside to work on what we have to work to actually show up outside for what we're called for.
Thank you, Hadassah. That is beautiful. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Absolutely. You know, the people who work in the grocery stores, the people who work in Amazon, shipping boxes. I mean, these are all invisible people. And without them, you know, we'd be in physical trouble without that. Thank you. There's a teaching so we're going to look at this real briefly, and then I'm going to split you up into groups where you'll have a chance to connect with somebody one-on-one. There's a teaching from Rabbi Simcha Bunim, who was a Hasidic rabbi in the 18th century and early 19th century. And he used to carry two pieces of paper in his pockets. In one pocket, it said, "The whole world was made for me." And the other pocket, the note said, oh, here we go, Hadassah has them. The other said, I'm only dust and ashes. And so when he felt like he was getting arrogant, he would pull out the I'm only dust and ashes note. And when he felt down, he would pull out the whole world was made for me. So what I'd like you to do, I'm going to split you into groups. And what I'd like you to talk about is I want to talk about this idea of being I am but dust and ashes, which came from Genesis. And so first I'd like you to just share where you're at with your partner. You know, I like this to be a sacred listening exercise. So we're not here to give each other advice, just to listen, just to let someone listen to you. And then after you've each shared, just talk a little bit about, is this an appropriate time to remember that we are but dust and ashes? I don't know the answer to that. And we'll all, you know, as with all Jewish discussions, there's multiple points of view which can be equally valid. So I am going to first stop the share. And then I'm going to create these breakout rooms. And so you're going to get something on your screen which says join breakout room. And then, so say yes, you'll have maybe 5-ish minutes or so, and then we will come back together. So for those of you watching live, you're not going to see people in the breakout rooms, but don't worry, I have a special teaching which I'm going to have for you as well. So teaching, so everybody click yes, I want to join my room. I see folks are disappearing. Your place now is in your breakout room with your partner. Okay. Do you see your button? I have to move room. I think everybody should be good to start sharing once again. From my slides, I'm going to move this to the side and I hope you can see this. I want to answer something from the book of Job. Now, Job, it's sort of from the end of the Bible. Not a lot of people know it, or if they do know it, they know it's a story about Job was a guy who had everything, great family, he was wealthy, and then everything was taken away from him. And his family was, children were killed, all his sheep were slaughtered, all his servants were slaughtered, and he gets really upset. And he gets very angry at God because, as we learned at the beginning of the story, Job was a blameless person. He did all of the sacrifices. He did everything that it said, teachings you were supposed to do. And there was this idea that if you did the sacrifices and you were a good person and you followed what we now would say are the mitzvot, that you would be protected, that God would. We still see this in the third part of the Shema prayer. If you follow what you're supposed to do, the rains are going to fall and you're going to be healthy. And he said to God, hey, what the heck? I did all of this stuff. I did what I was supposed to do. And I've been punished and I've had this terrible suffering. So after a big back and forth, God actually answers him. And what God says, in part, is what I've selected here. Does the eagle soar at your command, building his nest high, dwelling in the rock, jutting, oops, sorry, I've lost my thing, jutting dwelling in the rock, lodging upon the face of a jutting rock. Here he spies out his food, from afar he sees it. His young gulp blood, where the slain are, there he is. Now, what does this mean? What does this have to do with humility? And what does this have to do with kind of being punished? Well, this is part of a long section where God is explaining, hey, Job, the world is, if you believe it, just take within the story, God created the universe, God created a dangerous world where the eagle, when it sees its prey, it doesn't say, well, does that prey have family? Does that, was it nice to other people? Was it kind? That's not the way the world works. There's place, and we need to let go. We're a good, not I thought that I just the money they wanted me, that I'd be fine. But of the world, and what I needed to be to accept the way it is. So with this virus, which has, and we need to control this, and we built the develop. We're going to actually medical equipment and our medical masks in another country, and we're maybe not going to take care of. We're not going to take care of building a stockpile of medical masks. We're not going to start planning when things started to go wrong. We're just going to say, hey, we're the United States, we're going to be fine. And because we didn't, as a society or as our leaders, didn't occupy that space, there are natural consequences that come in from that. If we don't accept the world for the way it is and occupy our appropriate space, then things can happen. There's another teaching that I'd like to share real quickly. This is from us. It is talking about arrogance, and it's how do we avoid becoming arrogant. And he mentions that we should contemplate that circumstances can change. A wealthy person can become poor, a ruler can turn into a slave, and an honored person can fall into a disgrace. Or as we were talking about earlier, a checkout person at a grocery store can go from being invisible to really being a hero, for being out there helping all of us eat and helping all of us sustain ourselves. To get back to the text, diseases can befall a person and make them personally plead for someone to help them and assist them and ease their plight, and maybe be forced to appeal to people to whom they had shown disdain and greeting. Again, back to my issue in the corporate world. I was rude and arrogant to a lot of people, and when I needed their help, they were not there for me. So it's really an opportunity for us to look around and to appreciate who is out there and what they have to offer. If you're watching on Facebook, I can't see your comments, but I'd love if you wanted to make a couple of comments. As soon as this is over, I'm going to go back and take a look and see if there were any comments, and then I will answer them then. Okay, I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to close all rooms, which means that within 60 seconds, people are going to start coming back in. As you come back in, or as you're continuing to watch, I really want you to think about, like, where do you sit on this kind of spectrum between arrogance and humility? And how is that impacting how you are showing up today? Are you reluctant to ask for help? Or have you really had to step it up and say to your parent and to occupy a different space, hey, mom and dad, you gotta stay home. You're at risk. If you go out there and you catch something, it could really kill you. And I love you, and I don't want that to happen to you. So please don't do that. Wow, people must really be engaged in discussion because no one has been coming back. All right, the rooms are going to close in 2 seconds. 3, 2, 1, here we go. Okay. Well, it sounds, I am guessing that you were really deeply involved in your conversation, since like sometimes you, okay, in a minute, people can't get out of the rooms fast enough, but everybody waited till the last minute. I would love, without sharing any confidences that you may have heard from your partner, what was that experience like? What do you think? Are we all think of ourselves as what's going on? Okay, you're on mute. Someone we haven't heard from yet, if you feel a little courageous about speaking out, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to unmute yourself and share. If you don't know how to unmute yourself, you can wave your hand and I can unmute you. So
I really thought it was a great experience. It was nice actually to be partnered with somebody who I do not know. And to be able to talk about, what it feels like, and to get the response from the other person about what their feelings are like. So there's something about being able to do Havruta within this context, which is absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, Kitty is participating now. Yeah, she said. I was just saying that I think.
Did anyone get to kind of talk about the dust and ashes issue, or maybe we could talk about that now? Is this a good dust and ashes?
We did speak about dust and ashes, yes.
Christo and I did as well. And Christo, you want to unmute and you can chime in whatever time you want. My first statement is that I said to him, I never think of myself as dust and ashes. I said, that's just the body. But who I am is my heart, my soul, my mind, my actions, not my body. And so I personally had, that was my just take on it.
And Rana gave me like a whole new outlook on the various midot, because I've focused so much on trying to balance all of my midot as much as possible, that I kind of forgot that sometimes you might need to go a little too far in one direction or another on an as-needed basis for survival purposes. And I'd never thought of that for my life. So I thought I actually said, I need to write that down and keep it next to my MacBook so I can remember that.
Well, that is a great Musar. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's a great Musar trick, is just to write something on a sticky note or write a mantra on a sticky note and put it on your bathroom mirror and on your bed table. Look at it from time to time to remind you, because we get distracted. And okay, there's Gail's sticky note right there. Other thoughts?
The person that I was paired with, I think it was Wendy. I'm not sure, she's not on the screen, but at any rate, she brought up some very interesting points about being dust and ashes, or looking at dust and ashes as being freeing, a way of looking. I can't really explain it like she did, but she was really spot on, I thought. It was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And if Wendy, you're on here somewhere, if it's Wendy, please say something. I guess not.
I will say, I will just sort of echo that, because for
Oh, here we
me,
go.
I'm not one to think of
sorry, guys.
myself as dust and ashes, but really, when it comes to this virus, I am dust and ashes. This is much bigger and stronger than what I can do. And I really need, there's no talking my way out of this one. There's no efforting my way out of this one. There's no
Can you
put
hear
our
me?
life together, we can make a difference. If we are on an individual basis, we
I'm trying to
need
talk,
to
guys.
stronger than we.
Oh, can you hear me now? No.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Wendy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
There's
had some technical difficulty. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I was working with the computer and I didn't hear all you just said, Greg, but thank you
Okay.
very
Well, did you want to add something, Wendy?
And no, we were just talking about dust and ashes. I just said that I thought it was a place of just feeling free, because that's kind of all I bring to the table, and then when somebody's expecting something from me, that's where I start with. That's the foundation. Just like a sculptor has to have the clay, has to have some place where they can begin. And to me, it's a place of freedom. I think it's a place where you can step off and actually create. And that. I like that feeling of freedom,
We have only a couple of minutes left, and I wish that we could kind of go on for a long time. When you were away, I actually did a couple, so you can feel the video. But I want to leave us with a really idea in teaching, and that is about generosity. Because we do Musar to grow ourselves, but not for the sake of ourselves, for the sake of other people. So why does Maimonides say that it's better to give $1 a day for 1,000 days than $1,000 all at once? Why is that?
I think it's the practice of generosity, the practice of giving, tzedakah. If we're giving each day, we learn that practice. If we're giving in one day, it's a one-time thing, kind of a sense.
Great. So why is it important to do this as practice? I mean, that's true, but why that practice?
Well, I think it's spreading the wealth. Sorry, Selena.
Jack, we're gonna hang on a sec. Let's hear from someone else. Jack.
I can't hear. I was going to say that it becomes a practice, and something that becomes habitual and becomes part of your personality and character, and it becomes integrated into who you are, since it's such a repetitive. I guess it's a bit like operant conditioning, because it's a continual reinforces. But I think, as opposed to giving one lump sum, it's not it does become a personality changer.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Thank you, Jack. And yes, Maimonides invented operant conditioning 1,000 years before the psychologists figured. By routinely doing this act, we change. It rewires our brain neurons. It also changes our soul, if you want to accept that explanation. But either way, it's really important because it changes who we are. And I would invite all of you to think about generosity and to give $1 a day. I created a fundraiser on the American Musar webpage. I'm going to share it in the YouTube notes and also on the Facebook Live notes. I really hope and for other Jewish leaders, I hope we'll have an opportunity for tzedakah in each of these calls, because as important as it is for us to come together and to feel better and to grow, I hope that we will also remember to give $1 to something. I personally like organization because You know, my kid's school was giving out Chromebooks to families for computers, but if there's someone out there who does not have a computer, if there is a student who does not have a computer, they are toast. They're probably economically disadvantaged and they're probably behind already, and they are just completely cannot connect at all. So that's why I've picked this organization. They refurbish computers and they buy low-cost computers to get them in the handle. So I'm going to close. You can find me on the American Facebook page. In a couple seconds, close our eyes in a closing meditation and think about how we want to show up. What do you want to do differently now that the universe has forced this change on us? And how can you remember to bring this difference to the world to help us all get through this together? Thank you all so much for being here, whether you're on Zoom or on Facebook or YouTube. I really, my heart is very open and I'm very appreciative for all of you coming together in this way. I will be here again next week and I hope to see you again. Have a great evening and afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Bye, Greg.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Take care.
Very welcome.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye. You're very